The weight of exhaustion follows you everywhere. You feel it when you wake up each morning. You feel it as you push through your day. You feel it as you collapse into bed at night. This is not just physical tiredness. This is the exhaustion that comes from constantly fighting against life itself. Every day you struggle against deadlines, against expectations, against relationships that do not work, against a world that seems designed to resist your efforts. The most draining part? You believe this is normal. The constant battle has become so familiar that you accepted it as the only way to live. But this fight against the natural flow of existence is exactly what drains your energy, steals your joy, and keeps you trapped in a cycle of effort and disappointment. The ancient Chinese called it Wu Wei, two simple words that translate to effortless action or non-doing. But do not mistake this for laziness or giving up. Wu Wei represents one of the most powerful wisdom teachings ever developed. It is the art of accomplishing everything by forcing nothing. Think of a skilled sailor who does not fight the wind, but works with it, adjusting the sails to harness its power. Or a master martial artist who uses the opponent's force rather than opposing it directly. Wu Wei is action that comes from perfect alignment with the moment. Look at your life right now. How many hours do you waste pushing against locked doors? How many relationships do you damage by forcing your will? How many opportunities do you miss because you are too busy fighting what is already happening? The constant strain of swimming upstream has become so normal that you forgot there is another way to move through life. From your earliest years, you learned that success comes through struggle. Your teachers rewarded the students who worked hardest. Your parents praised determination and grit. Society celebrates those who never give up and power through obstacles. These messages shaped your understanding of how life works. You absorbed the belief that nature must be conquered, problems must be attacked, and rest is only allowed after exhaustion. The result is a generation of people who feel constantly behind, perpetually inadequate, and deeply disconnected from their own natural rhythms. You were taught to control every aspect of your existence, but never shown how to flow with life. The culture trained you to view surrender as weakness when it might be your greatest strength. This misunderstanding forms the foundation of modern suffering. Wu Wei is not a distant philosophy or a spiritual luxury. It is a practical key that unlocks a completely different way of living. When you finally stop fighting the current, you discover the peace that has always been available to you. Not the temporary peace of a vacation or weekend, but the deep, abiding peace that comes from moving in harmony with existence itself. The change that awaits you is not about adding more techniques to your already overcrowded life. It is about releasing the unnecessary tension that prevents you from experiencing life fully. Take a moment now. Let your shoulders drop. Feel your breath slow down. Even this small taste of surrender offers a glimpse of what awaits when you stop forcing your way through life. The path to this transformation begins with understanding something fundamental about reality. To grasp Wu Wei, you must first understand the foundation from which it emerged. Taoism arose in ancient China as a response to the complexity and rigidity of society. Unlike Western philosophy that often seeks to categorize and control reality, Taoism recognized something more fundamental, an underlying pattern or flow to all existence. The Tao itself cannot be named or defined because it represents the ever-changing nature of reality. It is the unseen current that moves through everything. The Tao Te Ching, the primary text of Taoism, begins with, "The Tao that can be told is," not the eternal Tao. This statement reveals something crucial. True wisdom cannot be captured in words or formulas. It must be experienced directly. The Tao exists beyond our attempts to label or control it. When Buddhism arrived in China, it merged with Taoist insights to create Zen, a tradition that stripped away unnecessary complexity to reveal direct experience. Zen does not ask you to believe anything. It invites you to see for yourself by dropping preconceptions about how things should be. Both traditions recognize the same truth. The human mind creates suffering by resisting what naturally occurs. The constant attempt to control life creates tension between reality and your expectations. This tension becomes the source of anxiety, frustration, and exhaustion that defines modern existence. The wisdom of Wu Wei challenges the fundamental Western assumption that humans stand separate from nature, meant to conquer and control it. Instead, it recognizes that humans are nature, inseparable from the patterns and rhythms of existence. Your struggle against life is ultimately a struggle against yourself. This understanding flew directly against mainstream Western thought, which celebrated the individual will imposing itself on the world. It required someone who could translate these Eastern insights into language Westerners could understand, someone who could build a bridge between these seemingly opposite worldviews. That person was Alan Watts. If you are finding value in these ideas, please subscribe to continue exploring wisdom that can transform your everyday experience. In the 1950s and 60s, Eastern philosophy remained largely unknown in the West. The few who encountered traditions like Taoism or Zen often misunderstood them as exotic curiosities or religious dogma. Alan Watts changed everything. Born in England and later moving to America, Watts possessed a unique ability to translate Eastern wisdom using Western language and references. Watts was not a typical academic. He did not approach Eastern philosophy as something to study from a distance. He lived it. His talks and books vibrated with the energy of someone speaking from direct experience rather than theory. He knew that the greatest barrier to understanding Wu Wei was not intellectual, but psychological. The Western mind resisted the idea of non-doing because it triggered deep fears about losing control. Watts addressed this fear directly. He showed that Wu Wei was not about surrendering power, but accessing a different kind of power, the power that comes from alignment rather than opposition. He used examples from everyday life to demonstrate this principle. The skilled pianist who no longer thinks about individual notes, the experienced driver who navigates traffic without conscious calculation, the conversationalist who responds naturally without planning each word. What made Watts revolutionary was his refusal to present Eastern wisdom as something foreign or mystical. He showed that the insights of Taoism and Zen addressed universal human experiences, the anxiety of overthinking, the tension of constant striving, the exhaustion of battling against reality. These were not exotic problems, but the common suffering of modern existence. Watts challenged the Western obsession with progress and achievement. He famously compared life to music, noting that the purpose of music is not to reach the final note, but to dance with each moment of the composition. If you play to get to the end of the song, he said, you miss the point of the music entirely. This insight cut through the cultural programming that viewed life as a series of goals to accomplish rather than an experience to be lived fully. Watts did not offer techniques or methods. He offered a complete shift in perception. He invited people to stop viewing life as a problem to solve and start experiencing it as a mystery to participate in. Watts knew that Wu Wei could not be achieved through effort. The mind that tries to force non-forcing creates more tension, not less. Instead, he used stories, metaphors, and humor to help people recognize the absurdity of their struggle. And among his most powerful teaching tools was the metaphor of the river. The river flows constantly, powerfully, from mountains to ocean. It does not try to flow, it simply follows its nature. Now picture yourself in this river, arms flailing, muscles straining as you fight against the current. Each movement exhausts you further. The harder you push, the more the river resists. This struggle against the flow perfectly captures the normal state of human existence. When something unwanted happens, your first response is resistance. A relationship ends, and you fight against the feelings of loss. A job opportunity disappears, and you battle against disappointment. Your body ages, and you struggle against the natural process. In each case, it is not the event itself that creates suffering, but your resistance to it. Alan Watts recognized that this resistance forms the core of human suffering. The pain of loss becomes amplified by the desperate attempt to avoid feeling it. The stress of uncertainty becomes unbearable because you refuse to accept that uncertainty is normal. The anxiety about the future intensifies because you demand guarantees that life cannot provide. The river does not care about your resistance. It continues flowing, regardless of how hard you fight against it. Reality behaves the same way. It does not yield to your demands or conform to your expectations. It simply continues being what it is. Your resistance changes nothing except your experience of the river. Now imagine something different. Imagine relaxing your body in that same river. Instead of fighting the current, you begin to observe it. You notice its patterns, its strength, its direction. Gradually, you learn to work with these forces rather than against them. You discover that by adjusting your position slightly, you can navigate effectively without exhausting yourself. This shift represents the essence of Wu Wei. It is not passive surrender, but intelligent cooperation with reality. The person who understands Wu Wei does not stop taking action. They stop taking unnecessary action. They stop wasting energy fighting what cannot be changed. They focus their attention on what can actually make a difference. This understanding reveals something profound about human suffering. Most pain comes not from life itself, but from resisting life. You create tension in your body, anxiety in your mind, and conflict in your relationships by constantly swimming against the current of what is actually happening. But the river metaphor contains hope as well as challenge. When you stop fighting the river, you discover that it has been carrying you all along. The flow that seemed like your enemy becomes your greatest ally. The question is whether you have the courage to let go of the illusion of control. This requires understanding how deeply the need for control has been programmed into your consciousness. The need to control everything dominates modern society. From early childhood, you received clear messages. Make something of yourself. Never show weakness. Stay on top of things. These phrases sound innocent, even motivational. In reality, they planted seeds of constant anxiety. Society celebrates people who force their way to success, the business leader who never sleeps, the athlete who pushes through injury, the student who sacrifices health for grades. These become your models of excellence. But look closely at these examples. Beneath the surface achievements lies a common thread of disconnection. Disconnection from natural rhythms, from authentic emotions, from the simple joy of existence. Modern technology accelerated this problem. With smartphones, you gained the illusion of controlling information, time, and connections. Your calendar organizes every hour. Your notifications demand immediate responses. Your social media cultivates a perfect image. Each tool promises greater control, but delivers greater pressure. The result is a society of exhausted controllers. People who plan vacations with the same intensity they plan work projects. People who approach relationships like strategic investments. People who treat their bodies like machines that should perform on command. People who view emotions as inconvenient interruptions to productivity. Have you noticed how this affects you? The constant tension in your shoulders, the racing thoughts that prevent restful sleep, the subtle anxiety that follows you everywhere, the feeling that no matter how much you accomplish, it is never enough. These are not signs of personal failure. They are the natural consequences of a life spent fighting against reality instead of flowing with it. Even leisure becomes another form of control. Self-care transforms into another scheduled obligation. Meditation becomes another technique to optimize performance. Rest becomes justified only when it serves future productivity. The controlling mind turns everything, even its own healing, into another battle to win. Alan Watts saw this pattern clearly. He understood that the Western mind had become trapped in what he called the vicious circle. The more you try to control life, the more life appears to need controlling. Each solution creates new problems. Each attempt to find security generates new fears. The mind that seeks absolute certainty creates absolute anxiety. This is not just a philosophical problem. It manifests as chronic stress, autoimmune disorders, anxiety, depression, and broken relationships. The body keeps score of this constant battle against life. It records every moment of unnecessary tension, every refusal to accept what cannot be changed. But there is another way to live, a way that does not require constant struggle, a way that allows for effective action without draining tension. If you want to discover what changes when you stop forcing life, you must understand how to practically apply Wu Wei in your everyday existence. For deeper insights into living in harmony with natural cycles, check out my ebook, The Rhythm of Being. The link appears in the comments below. Wu Wei sounds beautiful in theory, but how do you actually live it in a world of deadlines, responsibilities, and expectations? The application begins with a fundamental distinction. Wu Wei does not mean doing nothing. It means doing without forcing. It means action that arises naturally from the situation rather than being imposed upon it. Start with simple awareness. Notice when you are straining unnecessarily. Feel the tension in your body during ordinary activities. Are your shoulders hunched while typing? Is your jaw clenched during conversations? Is your breath shallow while thinking about problems? These physical patterns reveal where you are forcing life instead of flowing with it. Wu Wei in practice means asking different questions. Instead of, how can I make this happen faster? Ask, what is the natural timing of this situation? Instead of, how can I control this outcome? Ask, what is trying to emerge here? Instead of, how can I push through this obstacle? Ask, is this resistance telling me something important? Applied to work, Wu Wei transforms productivity. You stop multitasking, which is actually multi-failing. You engage fully with one task at a time. You recognize that forcing 18 hours of work into a day produces less quality than flowing with your natural energy cycles. You discover that brief periods of genuine rest actually enhance creativity and effectiveness. In relationships, Wu Wei means releasing the need to control others. You stop trying to force people to change. You recognize that genuine connection happens when you meet people as they are, not as you wish they were. Conflicts become opportunities for understanding, rather than battles to win. Love flows naturally when you stop demanding that it follow your script. With emotions, Wu Wei means allowing feelings to move through you without resistance. Sadness, anger, fear, these are not enemies to suppress, but natural energies that need acknowledgement. The emotion you resist persists and grows stronger. The emotion you accept with awareness naturally transforms and releases. With uncertainty, Wu Wei means recognizing that not knowing is the natural state of human existence. The demand for absolute certainty creates paralysis. The acceptance of uncertainty allows for flexible response. The wise person makes plans while remaining open to change. They prepare without attachment to specific outcomes. Wu Wei also means respecting natural cycles. There are seasons for growth and seasons for rest. There are times for bold action and times for patient waiting. Modern society demands constant spring and summer, continuous growth and productivity, but winter and autumn, times of rest and release, are equally essential to sustainable living. Practicing Wu Wei requires constant vigilance against old patterns. The mind conditioned to control will repeatedly assert itself. It will disguise forcing as being responsible or showing commitment. It will justify struggle as necessary sacrifice. Each time this happens, you have a choice. Return to the battle against reality or remember the wisdom of flowing with it. This choice represents the fundamental shift that Alan Watts invited his listeners to make. A shift from the exhausting position of fighting against life to the natural state of dancing with it. And when this shift happens, everything truly changes. Life presents you with a fundamental choice. Continue pushing against reality, demanding that it conform to your expectations, or release the struggle and discover what becomes possible when you align with the natural flow of existence. This choice faces you not once, but in every moment of your life. The strangest paradox of Wu Wei is that when you stop forcing, you often achieve what force could never accomplish. The writer who stops struggling with words suddenly finds inspiration flowing. The insomniac who stops trying to sleep finally drifts off naturally. The person who stops desperately seeking love becomes naturally attractive to others. By releasing the tight grip of control, you create space for life to move through you rather than against you. This space becomes the foundation for genuine creativity, authentic connection, and natural healing. Without the constant noise of resistance, you can finally hear the quieter voices of intuition and wisdom. Without the constant tension of forcing, your body can access its natural capacity for renewal. Without the constant pressure of expectations, your relationships can develop according to their true nature. The transformation that comes through Wu Wei is not about becoming someone different. It is about returning to who you already are beneath the layers of conditioning. The person who has forgotten how to force, the person who remembers how to flow, the person who trusts life enough to move with it rather than against it. Alan Watts described this as the wisdom of insecurity. The discovery that by releasing the desperate search for solid ground, you learn to dance on shifting sands. By accepting the fundamental uncertainty of existence, you find a deeper security that no amount of control could provide. Before this video ends, take a moment to reflect. Where in your life are you currently forcing what could be allowed to flow? Which situation has you swimming upstream, exhausting your energy against a current that will not yield? What might change if you stopped fighting and started flowing with this reality? Share your insights in the comments below. Your experience might help others recognize where they are caught in unnecessary struggle. Remember that practicing Wu Wei is not something you perfect once and complete. It is an ongoing dance between the controlling mind and the flowing spirit. Some days you will remember to align with life. Other days you will fall back into struggle. Each return to forcing becomes another opportunity to choose again. The journey of Wu Wei begins with recognizing that you are not separate from the river of life. You are the river. Your thoughts, feelings, actions, and experiences are all part of the same flowing reality. The battle you thought you were fighting has always been with yourself. If these ideas resonate with you, do not stop here. The next video explores how Wu Wei transforms your relationship with time itself, releasing you from the prison of constant hurry and restoring the natural rhythm of meaningful living. This is not just additional information, but an essential piece of the puzzle for anyone seeking to live with greater ease and deeper purpose. The transformation has already begun. The simple awareness of Wu Wei has already planted a seed that, will continue growing long after this video ends. Trust this process, just as you are learning to trust life itself.